What's going on, guys? We are here with episode number 11 of the Club and Sub podcast. We're going to be breaking down on this card this weekend's title fight between Joe Benavidez, Davison Figueiredo, and that entire card. Before that, we're going to recap last night briefly. Tonight, it's going to be me, your normal host, John Stargarian, at MMA Fox. Luke is at SWR_betting, and Lags at Lags_the Capper. We are going to be joined eventually by C, and Quinn cannot make it tonight. So yeah, with that, let's get started. I guess I will go through my bets first. It was a bit of C's here already. All right. It was a bit of a bloodbath on my not a bloodbath. It was a weird night on my end. First bet I had was Benavidez, and I didn't really. He looked okay on the feet while I was there, but I knew the gassing problems, and I figured maybe cutting less weight would alleviate some of that. And instead, honestly, I thought I legitimately thought he might have been just shot anyway, even if they didn't stop the fight there. So whatever. I mean, plus 200, it's fine. It is what it is. But yeah, that's a miss. Next is Molly McCann. Had 1.5 units on her even money. Obviously, again, I beat the line by $1. Again, didn't hit. Truthfully, Talia Santos dramatically outperformed her tape. And I don't know if that's she was on PED, she had octagon jitters, but basically, she looked okay in her Contender Series fight, and she looked horrible in her debut. But last night, she looked like a legit top 10, 125er. So that was a bit strange. And yeah, so that was a bummer. And then I had Stamen against Jimmy Rivera, and this was probably my worst bet of the night. I don't regret the other two. This one, I always knew there was a possibility Rivera would just wash him out because he's the better striker and he's an elite grappler. And unfortunately for me, I let narrative go to my head here a bit. And, I generally try to avoid narrative as often as possible. But yeah, I tried to convince myself the X factors would be the difference here, and that's just not a plus EV way to approach it. So, yeah, that was a bad bet. And then I had Cater 4 units minus 166, and that was a good bet. Yeah, I think Cater probably looked reasonably about minus 300 or so. I'd say there was Ige had some success, but didn't have the tank to kind of run with it. Yeah, so that's what I had. Before we move on to Luke, anybody just joining the stream, just letting you know we're briefly recapping last night before we jump into tomorrow's card. Luke, do you want to go through your plays?
Yeah, so I ended the night plus 1.3 units profit. Not the greatest night I was hoping for. It could have been a lot better night if that Molly McCann play hit. I played her for 2 units at plus 100. Yeah, you kind of pretty much touched on it well, John, in the sense that I think it was one of those situations. Obviously, it was a bad bet in hindsight. The girl got 30-27, but it, like you touched on, it was one of those situations where with how Santos looked against Barella, I don't think there was any indication, even with how recent that was. It was her most recent fight and wasn't that long ago that she was going to come in here and look like a world beater. And I honestly was shocked the amount of success that she had in the grappling. I know McCann struggled there historically at times, but I know it's something she's worked on a lot. And then coupled with that, Molly just really showed bad fight IQ in the sense that she was throwing knees. She was engaging in the clinch even when she had opportunities to break away. And that was after she was already losing in the grappling too, because I think honestly, if that fight stayed standing for 15 minutes, both girls were landing, but I think you could definitely make a strong argument that Molly would have won that fight if it was.
I thought standing. She was winning round 2 before she went back into the clinch with her. It was they were. Yeah, I agree completely. It was a winnable fight, but bad bet.
Yeah, so I took 2 units down on that one, but probably one of my more proud few plays were my next 2 and my last only 2. It was 1 unit on Liana Jojua at plus 170, and I also played the fight doesn't go to decision at plus 160 as well. So anybody who is overtly confident there in Belbita, I don't understand, and anybody who's sitting there calling it a fluke or variance or anything like that is completely ridiculous, because if you did any sort of due diligence in the tape on that fight, that was the most likely outcome of what's going to happen here. Belbita has absolutely no grappling, and that showed. How quick did Jojua get that arm bar? less than 30 seconds, maybe, from when that happened, which is pretty much her go-to submission. So I was still baffled at that line, and I'm glad I took it and didn't buy into the whole Twitter narrative of it being like a dumpster fire of a fight, which in a large way it was, but that you still can't let that influence where there's potential value too. So I was happy about cashing both of those. If, like I said, if McCann cashed, I probably would have had close to a 6-unit night, which is bummer, but it is what it is. But yeah, I'll take a profit that makes for 4 winning events in a row. So looks like the year's turning around a little bit for me. Yeah,
that was a real sharp night, Luke. Lags, how about you?
Yeah, so I went actually 1-3 with a slight loss on the night, minus 0.35 units. So I guess I'll touch on the one we haven't touched on. So the fish gold under 2.5. I'm not going to say I regret the bet, but I definitely didn't expect Gordon to be on top for as long as he was. I expected more of a standing battle between the two. And as we saw, Gordon really doesn't have much striking at all on the ground. So it is what it is. Definitely not regretting that play. You guys touched on Molly McCann. Don't really need to do anything else there. Stamen by decision, plus 195. Similar thought there. I thought I definitely regret the bet, but I thought that Jimmy wasn't going to be as sharp as we touched on in the pod, but he proved me wrong clearly. And then I had 3 units on Calvin Kattar at minus 166. So like we touched on, I think probably that minus 300 line was probably pretty accurate. So I definitely like to see him and Holloway next. I think it'd be a good matchup.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, so mixed results night. I also had 2 live bets. I actually, kind of like I said in the pod, after Lizez ate the opening flurry, I live bet him plus 300, which was nice. And then I also picked up Tim Elliott with about a minute and a half left in round 3 at plus 240, which was a nice little stab. I know some people were like bitching about the decision. I thought it was pretty cut and dry personally. I guess I wouldn't have complained about Benoit getting round 2 and winning 29-28. I'd have to rewatch, but I thought round 3, that reason I live bet him was round 3 seemed like Elliott was pretty much controlling the round. So, yeah.
What round did they give? What round did they give Ryan? They all gave him round 1?
Must have. They must have given him round 1. He lit him up in round 1.
They didn't give him round. I thought round 2 was like the more clear round. No.
Interesting.
I was the opposite. I think.
Same.
I thought it was 1-1 for sure going into 3, but I thought 1 was Elliott and then 3 was Elliott.
Interesting.
Well, 2.
I might have to rewatch it for sure.
Benoit had a pretty deep sub, and he was piecing him up on the feet with more impactful shots. I mean, that sub was pretty deep.
Yeah, I had Benoit winning rounds 1 and 2, but I even put out I was cool with the decision too. I think it was a close fight.
Yeah, I mean the fact that we're having this conversation trying to figure out who won which round probably tells you that the decision's fine. to be honest,
definitely not a robbery.
Where was that guy versus Rivel, man? What the fuck?
I know. Cardio Tim came back last night a month later. Like
the enigma of Tim Elliott.
Dude, he posted an Instagram video like the morning of weigh-ins, and it just said "easy dollars" on screen. I was like, "Oh my god, this dude's just showing up for a paycheck." Like that's it. Like that's
yeah. I mean, I guess that just goes to show like how random this sport is, right? I mean, Tim Elliott really doesn't have cardio issues, and then like one time, just a major dump, and then after that, everybody's like, "Oh shit, maybe, is Elliott gonna gas after 7.5 minutes after like one time in his 40 fight career?"
See, you want to recap your plays real quick, and then we'll go into the main card or tomorrow's card. See.
Oh. Disconnect.
Is he here?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, yeah. I played a couple props. I had Gordon in round 3, Fish Gold round 1. Yeah, whatever. Whoever is scoring for DFS, please DM me. We need to talk. Seriously, there is some major issues that you guys have.
It's just fuckery is what it is.
That's incredible. 44 significant strikes. Dude, what was Gordon doing in round 3? He had to have 100 fucking significant strikes in that round. What is that? What the hell is a significant strike? Like, dude, who's judging these things? They might as well just make it strikes, because why has it got to be something subjective where somebody's just like, oh, shit, that must have hurt.
I agree completely. I mean, hammer fist to the side of the head, I would think qualify as significant, but apparently they don't at all.
That's garbage. Yeah, I played Rivera at honestly, originally when I was looking at it, when the line kind of just started to come in, I just kind of thought it was getting like ridiculous. I understood like some of the Cody hype, but like essentially like Rivera is like, a top 5 135er. Like he just always kind of has been. And like, I mean, even in the Jan fight, I mean, most of us agree he was beating Jan other than a couple moments. So it's kind of like weird that like people were just like using the narrative of like Cody being like this really good wrestler. Even like he is, don't get me wrong, he's a good wrestler, but Rivera's takedown defense is elite, like all time elite. And like within the pocket, like Rivera just had like, I mean, as I kind of expected, like his counter combo game, when you try to close the distance on him, like he's just ripping you apart. So yeah, I just kind of thought like the Cody. I think the Cody was just like somewhat recency bias. I mean, it's not that hard to look really good versus Brian Kelleher, but whatever.
It's kind of a testament to how impressive Aljo's performance was that like Cody tried to clinch him to the fence and he was just shedding it with ease, and Aljo basically kept him there whenever he wanted to. Yeah, it was pretty impressive.
Yeah, I think we're all. I mean, that's all. Aljo's taking it probably over Yan next.
Yeah.
I mean, C for sure is in that boat.
I'm in that camp for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's the other thing with like Cody, like versus Rivera, like he really needed to suffocate him with volume, and like he doesn't have like that Aljo type volume, like where he could just strike from out. Like he could have, like Cody's best chance was to literally just stick him, like just literally fucking throw a jab and leg kick from the outside. Yeah, but and then I played Calvin inside the distance, and I played the over, so that washed. But good performance, I guess, from Calvin. Looked good defending takedowns. Had one like pretty explosive get up, which is impressive. It's always good to see Calvin do that. Probably still not going to make like adjustments to getting his leg chopped off. So I don't know. It'd be interesting to see like who he's facing next. I'm kind of starting to lean toward like the division needs to just do Cejudo Volk, because there's not really like a clear, I guess, like next fight from Volk. Like what we're gonna. I mean, I think Max won that fight, but like, a third time. I mean, come on, like I'm over it. Like I don't need to see that.
Plus, I think we'd all like to see Cejudo die in the octagon. So it's
Like, it's just. I think it's just a weird division. Like it's probably one of the most clusterfuck division, because you have Zombie and Ortega who aren't even like. Is that even scheduled yet?
Nope. And Yair's a beat August. That's and Calvin's kind of sitting out.
And Calvin's kind of sitting there.
Yeah. I think we get Volk at a good line.
Yeah,
I think we'd get Volk at a pretty good line right now. There's like going to be a ton of recency bias on him.
Hopefully, like mine
against Cejudo.
Dude,
I think we might get a way better line than what you think.
If it's under -200, I'll have 10 units on it. I'm not kidding. That's ridiculous. Anyway, we'll move into the main card for Saturday night's card. It's a good one. It's Joe Benavidez, Davison Figueiredo. It's a rematch. It's for the flyweight title because Davison Figueiredo's fat ass missed weight the first time around here. So rematch in Abu Dhabi. Pretty interesting card. A lot of dogs that I think will be barking. I've been advertising it all week. I'm very heavily invested in the dog. So if chalk cleans up here, I'm going to lose a lot of money on Saturday. So, yeah, let's get into it. First fight of the night, Carlos Felipe, Sergey Spivak. I don't have a great read here. I tried to tape Felipe, but there's almost no tape on him. And, pretty much what this comes down to is whether or not Felipe can wrestle. And I just don't almost see enough to know that. And so, yeah, I have really no read. I guess my gut would be Spivak just because he's fought real people. But yeah, that's it. Luke, how about you?
So I don't want to say I necessarily disagree, but I guess my question mark going into it is not necessarily if Felipe can wrestle, it's if Spivak gets him down. I mean, as you touched on, there isn't a ton of tape out there, but I mean, from what I saw, once again, it's the Brazilian regional scene. So what are you going to do there in terms of analysis, and only through a couple fights? But I mean, it's looked like his takedown defense was pretty good, at least from like a technical standpoint of getting his hips away and digging underhooks and trying to work to get off the fence. So to me, I think it's more so of, is Spivak able to land takedowns? Because historically, really, that's where he's had his most success. Like he's got some knockouts on his record too, but largely when fights have been standing. I mean, Walt Harris knocked him out. Tabura was winning on the feet, and then Tabura actually out-grappled him. And then Tai Tuivasa is just not easy to, or I should say is super easy to out-grapple. So I've never been high on this Spivak guy, but I actually put this fight in my 3 Not For Me article this week. I think if you're betting either guy here, I think it's the definition of a dart throw, to be honest. It's just a dumpster fire of a fight. And there's just not enough on Felipe, I think, where you can justify even taking him at like plus 140 or plus 150 or whatever it sits at. I think you're just kind of hoping for something essentially. So I wouldn't touch this with the 10-foot pole.
Lex, how about you?
Yeah, just to keep it kind of brief. Similar to Luke, I don't rate Spivak very high, and I don't know how. Like we said, Felipe, there's not a lot of tape to see how his wrestling game is. So my only lean here would be the over 1.5, just I think Spivak could lay on him if he gets, the takedowns. But honestly, it's a pass.
See?
No real opinion here. Yep, pass.
Okay. All right, next up, we got Davi Ramos, Arman Tsarukyan. Luke, I think you have a play here. You want to go first with this?
Yeah, so I played Arman Tsarukyan for 2 units at minus 190, I believe, the other day. I guess in fairness, whenever these kind of younger guys come up that are I guess, relative hype jobs, whether it's justified or not. I mean, if that's what the public is saying, I'm always a little bit skeptical, just because we've seen those types of guys and girls crash and burn on multiple occasions. But I think this is one that definitely is justified. In making the bet, I'm definitely not disrespecting Davi Ramos. The guy's obviously world-class in terms of his jiu-jitsu. His striking has improved over the years. But I guess really the big thing for me here in making the bet on Tsarukyan, and he looked just great against Makhachev, even in the unanimous decision loss. I think that's probably one of the more impressive performances I've seen in a loss, just with how big of a monster Makhachev is. And so I think, in terms of like the wrestling and what he needs to do to win this fight, obviously he probably doesn't want Davi Ramos on top of him or in any position to be able to take his back. But I think the guy's wrestling is good enough to not let Davi Ramos get him down, a la that Makhachev fight, who is a great wrestler and wasn't really able to do much with it. And then in terms of the stand-up, Ramos, like I said, his striking has improved, but he largely just kind of wings big shots. He's a really big, bulky guy for the division. He carries a lot of muscle. And so any fights we've seen kind of extended, we've seen him slow down. So I just don't see the win condition here for Davi Ramos being extremely high unless Tsarukyan makes small mistakes or kind of comes in with a poor game plan. But because I think on the feet, his striking is better. And even in the clinch, I think he actually should be able to out-muscle him there too, which is not easy to do against Ramos. I think it's just one of these situations where I think the hype is real. I think this kid's really, really good. And Davi Ramos is a good test, man. So, I guess we'll see. But I think Tsarukyan beats him handily on the cards, 30-27.
Lex, what about you?
So this is actually definitely one of the ones that I haven't really looked into much. I'm probably going to do more tape study on that tomorrow. But I'm leaning with Luke here as well. I think Arman is definitely the real deal. And I think that this just is not a good matchup for Ramos. But to be honest, for me right now, it's just a pass.
See?
Yeah, I'm not too big on Ramos here. I think maybe I have a little bit of on the over and parlay with something else, but yeah, I don't really think a finish is really too likely on either side. I guess somebody's gonna finish, maybe Ramos with like a crazy overhand, but I don't think he's subbing him, and I think Arman just kind of controls wherever the fight goes. So yeah, I think fight goes to the decision is kind of where I'm at here.
Yeah, I have no play as of yet. So I actually, though, similar to you, Luke, I think Tsarukyan's the real deal. I'm a huge, huge fan. I mean, Makhachev landed 4 takedowns in that fight on 9 attempts, which is not the best defensive percentage, but considering the rate Makhachev normally lands takedowns at, he was only able to advance position twice. His get-ups there were incredible. And, if I don't think Ramos can get him down with any consistency. And, even if he lands a takedown or two, like, I know he's a BJJ ace, but the reality is Makhachev is better at passing than Ramos is, like, significantly better. So, like, I'd be pretty surprised if Ramos could put him in much danger on the mat. I mean, I shouldn't say be surprised. I don't think it's likely that he'll put him in much danger, and I just don't think he'll get down enough. And, like, on the feet, I saw some people kind of shitting on Sarukian stand-up for the OAM fight, and I'm going to give a little bit of an unpopular opinion here. Like, I don't think OAM is some kind of an elite striker, but he's kind of better. He gets credit for being, like, he outstruck Gilbert Burns at distance. He's not horrible. Like, he can hold his own, and he's crafty. Like, he's been in the octagon before. So I don't know. I don't really hold that against Arman too much. Like, I don't think he's an elite striker, but Ramos doesn't throw any volume. I think he had like 6 significant strikes, something crazy like that against Makhachev. So yeah, I guess Ramos could knock him out or scramble his way into a sub, but I just don't think you can count on him to win minutes here. I kind of think I shouldn't be wanting to talk since I'm going to be doing it all night, but I kind of think paying Ramos is a bit of a dart throw.
Yeah.
Anyway, we move on.
I guess, sorry, to touch real quick, DX in the chat, Sarukian inside the distance is plus 490 on FanDuel right now.
Yeah, I don't hate that.
I don't. Like, similar to what C said, though, I don't really see a finish here.
So we'll move on. We got Malcolm Gordon, Amir Albazi, low-level flyweight fight. Both are making their debuts. Lags, you have an opinion here?
Not at all.
Not at all.
Complete pass, to be honest.
See?
No, when you text me saying that the guy's been knocked out like 4 times at 125, I just decided I was going to pass on this.
Yeah.
It's like wasn't worth my time.
I actually did a deep tape study on this to come out with no bet, which is kind of annoying. But I'll just give you my general thoughts. Basically, I think Gordon's terrible, like truly, truly awful. He's got some meme submissions, but he can't really defend wrestling. His hands are okay, I guess, but he has no defensive striking. And literally every time the guy gets touched with a combination, he covers up like he's hurt. Like what C just said, he's been finished by KO at flyweight like 4 times regionally. The guy is just bad. And on the other side, Albazi, I don't hate Albazi's game. It's relatively processed. Like, he'll attempt takedowns in volume. I think he's a black belt. He's got a bunch of submissions, but he won't sacrifice position. He'll kind of just be pretty judicious and methodical about looking for submission attempts. And he's got decent hands. He fought Shorty Torres regionally before. I think it might have been his last fight. And he lost that fight, although I thought he got robbed personally. But he was competitive with a guy who was in the UFC. Not that Shorty Torres is anything special. But, yeah, I think Albazi's got the power to finish it on the feet if it stays there. And if not, I think he can probably out-grapple Malcolm Gordon. But at minus 180 for a debutant, facing another debutant in COVID time, it's going to be a pass for me. What about you, Luke?
Yeah, no strong opinion here as well. I guess I was potentially looking to target either the under or the fight doesn't go to decision here. I think both guys have at least somewhat amount of jiu-jitsu acumen. At least, though, in terms of control, what I noticed through tape in regards to Albazi, he does a really good job of passing and then controlling and flowing between different positions on the ground, not necessarily attempting submissions right away. But I think his control component is a little bit better in terms of Gordon, where, like you said, he kind of will go to his back and then kind of get some of those subs there. But in terms of this Gordon guy, though, the dude's massive for the division, though. Like, he's crazy. I didn't even honestly know what the division was when I started tape on this, and I looked and I saw his flyweight. I was like, this dude is massive. Like, the dude is jacked. So, but in terms of his overall skill set, I guess I don't really rate it that highly. You kind of touched on it. He's a guy who doesn't really like to get hit much at all. So I'm going with Albazi here. I think he's probably just a little bit better everywhere. But, during this whole COVID situation, 2 guys on short notice in a foreign country, to me, this is just one of those super high level variance fights. So I don't really like a side here, but if that under is it, I don't think they've released it yet, but if that under's kind of around that plus 150 mark, honestly, I'll probably take that.
Yeah, agreed. I kind of like that play. Oh, yeah, DX, we acknowledge you. Don't worry. We move on, and so we have Brett Johnson.
Sorry, real quick. Sorry about that. I just saw best fight odds real quick. Luke, so the fight doesn't go to decision is minus 130.
It's not horrible. What's the under? So the under is probably about even money, right? Must be.
I don't think they released the under yet.
They did. Yeah, they did not. So we just had that -130 and then -110 to go to decision.
Yeah, I would in a fight like this in a violence bet, I would 100% need a plus next to the number if I was to play it. But
agreed.
That's just me.
So next up, we got Brett the Pikey Johns, Montel Jackson. I think there's a lot of action here. See, I think you have the biggest bet, I believe. You want to start here?
Yeah, I mean, I got 4 units on Johns. I'll have 1 unit on inside the distance with Johns. Yeah, I mean, am I going in and out here?
No, I got you.
They're good.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Montel, I guess I kind of think, sometimes narratives come into play here. And this is an instance, I guess, where I think a narrative is kind of coming into play that, Montel's, an evolving fighter, young guy who can make vast improvements to his game. He's long, he's an athletic freak, big hands. Problem is, I don't necessarily think he uses, I guess, his length too well. If he really wants to beat Johns, I think he really just should jab his face off and keep him at distance, but not really something that, you can really rely on him to do. In terms of, Montel's wrestling background, I think it's somewhat suspect from what I've researched. Just in general, I don't think he's as high level of a wrestling prospect when you really kind of dig into his background. I had a conversation with Ozzy about it too. So that was interesting where that went. But yeah, I think Johns is just pretty underappreciated in general. Really good grappler. Montel, I'm not going to be surprised when Montel gives up his back and Johns takes that and he subs him. Just kind of how I see it going. Plus, I think that Johns is going to have success just being able to hold him down. And even on the feet, Johns in the pocket, I think, is better than Montel. Johns is pretty underrated in general. He had some good exchanges with Pedro in the pocket. And I mean, come on, he's faced better competition here. So, yeah, I'm on Johns for 4 units.
Yeah, so I'm also on Johns, 2 units plus 230. So basically, you see hit a lot of it on the head. I'll just touch on some, but it's pretty much what Steve said. I think for Jackson's cleanest path here would be to kind of just use that gigantic frame, stick and move. But when does Jackson really stick and move? He's got a good jab, he's got a nice 1-2, but he kind of sits down on it and likes to come forward. Not really a lateral fighter. He can get backed up pretty easy. And I'd be concerned if Johns was one of these guys who didn't like to get hit, and if you touch him coming forward, he'll stop and just stay at range. But Johns isn't afraid to take some to give some. So I think he's going to be able to kind of walk through the damage into the pocket here. And to C's point, yeah, I think he can be competitive in pocket exchanges. But yeah, where I really think he has an edge is the grappling. So Montel Jackson, despite how good he's looked in his last 3 fights, let's be real. They were against Kelleher, impressive win, but it was over in a minute. You took nothing from that fight. And then Sukumatath and Kalarish, I mean, that's just complete trash. There's nothing. And Kalarish took his back twice. And, the thing is, when you look at him, it's not just, incidental. He's getting out-grappled in places. You look at him when he gets back to the fence, he doesn't build a wide base when guys go for double legs. He almost just kind of tries to loosely grab, an underhook, and instead just ends up getting picked up and dumped. Same thing when he's getting up, always gives his back. Even when he lands takedowns, it seems like he's good at getting takedowns, but doesn't really know what to do once he's there, whether to throw ground and pound, advanced position, leaves a lot of space. And, Johns is very opportunistic, even when he gets taken down at reversing position and working up and pushing you into the fence from there. We saw it a lot against Tony Gravely. And frankly, I personally rate Gravely's wrestling game significantly better than I rate Montel's. So look, I'm not saying Montel can't win, but I am saying, when I looked at the tape here, if Johns just sticks to the right game plan, comes forward, forces the pocket, forces this to the fence, I honestly think he should be a slight favorite. That's just, but maybe I'm crazy, and maybe Montel comes out and uses that crazy athleticism and puts it on him. But I think Johns has all the tools to win this, at a pretty reliable clip. Luke, how about you?
Yeah, you guys pretty much touched on it all, so I'll be brief. I got 1 unit on Brett Johns as well at plus 210. I mean, you touched on it, especially in that Gravely fight too. I think that guy is just drastically underrated. I know he kind of just came into the UFC, but he wrestled at Appalachian State, which is a decent program as well. And he's one of those guys that just not a lot of people know about. So, and I mean, granted, he did give Brett a tough fight, but I think Brett proved that he out wrestled the collegiate wrestler, and then obviously had the jiu-jitsu acumen to be able to take his back and get that late choke as well. And that's, I don't know. My big problem, I mean, you touched on it, John, with Jackson, is that we've seen him give his back multiple times. And if you do that against a guy like Brett Johns, who has a very good back take, it can be over shortly after. So, some of these guys, as C touched on, he's got all the intangibles. He's super long, massive hands, uses good wrist control and whatnot. But I think like this kind of whole athleticism narrative eventually will catch up to guys. And you touched on too, in terms of strength of competition, that Sukumtat fight and Kalarish fight. I mean, those guys had really no answer for the distance at all. They couldn't effectively close range at all. And you touched on, Brett Johns is going to eat shots and get it into range. So really the only path to victory I see here for Montel is if like C said, if he just jabs his face off, utilizes lateral movement, which we haven't seen a ton of, and Brett Johns just gets picked apart from the outside. I think it's a definite outcome here. I just don't see Brett Johns sitting there for 15 minutes and letting his face get jabbed off. He's gonna shoot shots. And I think Montel also definitely struggles against the cage as well. And that's largely where those back takes are given up as well. I don't think he wall walks well. And that's when he'll just post his hands to try to stand up, which is just cardinal jiu-jitsu mistake in MMA. So I think, as you guys touched on, this line is crazy off. This is a bet I'm totally willing to lose if Montel comes out here and just shows massive improvements and Brett shows shit fight IQ or something. But at plus 210, I'm willing to take that shot all day.
Yeah, real quick, as far as where the line closes.
Yeah, I was going to touch on that. Yeah, go ahead.
I said it. Go for it.
Yeah, I'll just keep going, I guess. So I also have one unit of plus 230. But yeah, we're just saying where the line closes. It opened, like we said, most of us got plus 230, and now it's sitting around plus 155, I think, plus 165.
Probably in the area, I'd imagine.
I think that's a little crazy, but I think it would probably close maybe plus 175, plus 180.
Yeah.
I think it sounds about right. So I guess just a couple things that I'll touch on that you guys haven't. To come back to the Kalarish fight, Dan Miragliotta, man, he is some kind of referee. Honestly, I thought he should have saved Kalarish. Kalarish was getting his ass kicked on the fence, and he just let that happen. And then I guess Magic brought it up in the chat. Jackson has an all-time bad fight IQ. He was lighting Kalarish up on the feet and then just takes him down and didn't do much. And like you said, ended up getting his back twice. So like Luke said, I'm willing to, if this bet loses, I'm willing to take that risk because I think this line is way off. And I think there's definitely the value of Brett Johns here.
Agreed. So CW plus 150. I don't know. It was. I guess
I'll touch one thing real quick. He said that beating a vet like Kelleher under a minute shouldn't be dismissed. I don't rate Kelleher that highly though. I mean, and Jackson, like frame wise compared to Kelleher, he was massive.
I'm not dismissing beating Kelleher. Like if I saw him beat Kelleher's ass for 15 minutes, I wouldn't be dismissing it. He landed a freaking elbow and knocked him down and subbed him. Like that is, it's not. I'm not saying it's lucky. Obviously, it took skill and power to do that, but you can't build much of an analysis off of a 1 minute fight. Like that's just no matter who's fighting. That's the reality, right. In my opinion, anyway.
Yeah, no, similar to like the Jorge Askren fight. We learned nothing. Right. Like, yeah, sure. It took a lot of skill to beat Ben Askren, but 5 seconds, we didn't learn anything from Jorge there.
Also, before we move on, I'm not saying names, but someone compared Montel Jackson to a young John Jones this week, and that is fucking crazy. That's all I'm going to say.
He's been getting those comparisons forever now. I don't get it.
Dude, John Jones at 23 was the most well-rounded fighter in the UFC. Like that's a crazy comparison. Anyway, we move on. And I have a bet here. We have Joe Duffy, Joel Alvarez. So I actually played Alvarez right before we came on here, half unit, plus 285. Yeah, I think Joe Duffy's terrible, to be honest. I don't know what I expected. I had a bunch of people tell me that Alvarez was horrible. I watched his tape. He might be horrible, but he Look, Ismagulov clearly beat him in his debut, but it's not like he came out there and just completely got the floor mopped with him. Like, he was competitive in that fight, and Ismagulov, he's probably top 10 to 15 at lightweight. His striking is really unreal. And, Alvarez actually outlanded him in head strikes in that fight. And I thought that was pretty impressive. And then, his last fight with Beluardo, you don't take anything really from beating Beluardo, but he got a win there. And, he seems to have, okay boxing, probably not as good as Duffy's, but he adds a massive frame to it. Like 6'3", like 77-inch reach. He's pretty active, has a good low kick. And then on the other side, you have Duffy, and dude, Duffy just doesn't throw strikes, man. Like, I went back and looked at his career. He's never, outside of the Resnick Madadi fight, he's never landed or thrown more than 85 strikes in 15 minutes. And like, he threw against Madadi because Madadi was 39, but it's like, do I expect him to do that here? Like, you saw him against Vic. He was clearly like confused by Vic's length. Now, not that Alvarez is the boxer Vic is. He's obviously not. I just don't think, you look at Duffy's career, I don't think he's reliable to win a striking match at an 80% clip, a near 80% clip. I don't think he's reliable to win it at a 70% clip, to be honest. I capped him like minus 200 just because, data on Alvarez is a bit scarce, and, Duffy's been in there with people. But, like, I wouldn't be shocked if Alvarez comes out here and just outworks him and just looks a lot better. So, yeah, I don't think Duffy's very good. His gas tank's going. He's super susceptible to low kicks. Alvarez throws kicks. It's a pure value stab, half unit plus 285, but I think this line's crazy. Luke, how about you?
Yeah, you touched on it. I'm pretty much right there with you. The only reason I guess I'm not playing Alvarez in this spot is, I don't know, man. One thing that irks me, I guess, not that it's the guy's fault. I mean, the dude's literally finished every single one of his wins, but from like a handicapping perspective, it's just really hard for me to back guys who I haven't seen beat somebody over the course of 15 minutes. But then again, the guy's also at like plus 285, plus 300. So, I mean, I get it there from the value standpoint of taking the shot because the price is so good. You're kind of willing to concede that a little bit, but I think as you touched, I think you hit the nail on the head with pretty much everything. I'm not a big Joe Duffy guy, but I guess one thing I will say, a little fun fact, is that Joe Duffy has been a favorite in every single one of his UFC fights, and a moderate favorite in at that. I think the lowest he's ever closed was like around minus 150. And let's keep in mind, he's fought guys like Dustin Poirier, James Vick, Mark Chikasi, and then, I mean, all of his wins are just over not very good guys as well. So, I mean, if we're talking from kind of like a narrative standpoint, just stylistics aside for a second, Joe Duffy's a guy who's just largely overvalued by the public, given that he's only 4-3, as I touched on, being favored in all 7 of those fights. So I think that's a really, really interesting narrative here. I mean, just from a betting perspective in general, you might just have a really good chance to capitalize on the incorrect public perception of Joe Duffy, at least in terms of the line. So I don't hate the play on it all, John. I suck at hitting these long shot dogs a lot, and I already got a few on this card tonight. So I'm going to try to minimize risk a little bit, but yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if this one cashes and I'm kicking myself.
Steve, how about you?
I haven't looked into this, so I have nothing for you guys.
Lags?
Yeah, but I'll be honest, I haven't looked much into it either. But I guess similar to what Magic just said there, I think that's the reason why this line is as crazy as it is. He beat Conor McGregor in like his 4th or 5th fight. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I just
10 years ago too.
Right. Like I don't. But I definitely
probably minus 500 against Conor.
Yeah, honestly, but no. So I definitely think this line is wide, but I definitely have to do more tape study to see if I'm going to put a half unit stab on Alvarez here.
All right, so we move on. I think another one where a few of us have bets. Got Grant Dawson taking on Nad Narimani. Luke, you want to go first there?
Yep. So I played Nad Narimani 1 unit at plus 230. I'll preface by saying that I'm not in the big Grant Dawson camp that a lot of people are. I definitely don't discount any of his abilities or wins or anything like that. I just think that even in the times in the UFC so far that he's been tested a little bit, we've seen him really struggle. Obviously, he's gotten finishes and unanimous decision wins and all that, and obviously his wrestling is very strong. But I think by a very long margin here, the opponent he's drawing in Nad Narimani is is by far his toughest test to date. And I mean, just from a stylistic perspective, obviously Dawson is a grindy wrestler, and against a guy, Nad Narimani, who in my opinion fared very well against Mike Grundy, who's actually an Olympic level freestyle wrestler. And Grundy wasn't able to have really any success in the wrestling in that fight at all. He did end up knocking Nad out, but that fight was relatively competitive up until that point. So ultimately what I'm getting to is that what we've seen from Dawson, at least when he's on the feet, you know, Julian Erosa had a ton of success on the feet. Trezano had some success as well when those fights have been able to stay standing. So my whole narrative here is that I think Nad Narimani has the caliber of wrestling, even with how good Dawson's wrestling is, to stuff takedowns. I don't think Grant Dawson has largely just been able to run through guys. I know, like I said, he's faced a little bit of adversity from those guys, but largely he's been able to run through guys. He's not running through Nad Narimani here. So this kind of falls into that category in terms of the John's bet as well. This is one I'm 100% willing to lose. I think the line is just gigantically off here, because if Grant isn't able to land takedowns, I think Narimani has the better boxing on the feet. And one other important note, quick too, Grant Dawson does not like to be hit at all. And when he does, he starts to panic wrestle. And because, you know, his wrestling is good enough, and, you know, Erosa doesn't have the greatest takedown defense, you know, the guy was able to kind of get takedowns, but he's not going to get takedowns panic wrestling with a guy in Nad Narimani. So once again, I think we just got another crazy line. I think the public perception on Dawson is higher than it should be. And people are sleeping on Nad here. So I think, honestly, if you can get anything above like plus 150 here, I think you're getting a crazy amount of value on Narimani.
See, how about you?
Yeah, I'm not fully done with this, but yeah, I guess I have similar thoughts on Nad. Yeah, you know, I don't think Grant, you know, from what I've seen so far, is really going to be able to control him. Even if he is able to land takedowns, I don't think he's going to be able to control him. And then on the feet, you know, Luke said it, Dawson doesn't really look like he reacts well to kind of getting hit. So, yeah, I guess, you know, right now I'm leading Nad, but I got a little bit more that I have to do. And for everybody listening, Magic is saying that if Dawson is exposed, he is willing to come on to the podcast next week and give a full breakdown.
All right. I want it.
I want it. Yeah.
I want Magic on it. I do. I would love Magic. I was actually invited to come on for the next pay-per-view, be a full card guest, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'd have to play around with the time zones then too.
Sunday afternoon. Anyway, Lags, what do you got here?
Similar to you guys, I haven't done, or I guess similar to C, I'm not completely done with this, but I'm not in the Dawson camp either. I just don't think he's going to be like holding him down, as he said. And then on the striking, I think that Nad's going to be competitive. So I think that at plus 200, I definitely think it's worth a look.
What was that?
Sorry about that. Basically, I think that it's basically dog or pass. Similar to most of these matchups, not completely done tape studying, but I think this is dog or pass for sure.
Yeah, so I'm not going to go too far into it. They all hit it. But pretty much, I think I actually think Narimani might be a better wrestler than Dawson, to be honest with you. I know that's going to be a hot take, but Dawson's a decent wrestler. I bet Dawson against Trezano, and I had him parlayed against Minner. And I remember thinking after the Trezano fight, like, wow, I got really fucking lucky there. You know, it seemed like the tide had totally shifted. He wasn't holding him down. He was struggling in the clinch, and Trezano was piecing him up. And then he kind of just randomly fell into full mount. And Dawson and mount is like demonic on top. So, but Narimani, it's like to Luke's point, and C's point, I don't think he can be controlled here. You look at his fights. First of all, he doesn't accept position. You know, he does. If you go watch his fight with Figueiredo on CW, you know, he does a phenomenal job of grabbing an underhook, shrimping, and getting up right away. Like, he's not going to give the only times he gives his back are to guys who can't sub him. He's not going to go in there and give his back to Dawson. And so, like, I've seen people say Dawson's like this cardio king. Dawson's only gone to decision once in his career, and it was against Erosa, and he looked like he was fading bad in the Erosa fight. So I'm like very confident on the feet here that, you know, Narimani's going to piece him up there. That jab's going to be there all day. So is the right cross. Maybe Dawson will land some shots because Narimani is hittable. But, Narimani's one of those guys. It's like if he had more athleticism, he'd probably be really, really good. He's like kind of like a C+, like B- level at everything, and just not quite athletic enough to like get there. But yeah, I think he can give Dawson a lot of resistance in the grappling here. I don't think Dawson can hold him down unless he gets lucky and stumbles into mount again. And I think on the feet, I think he's going to really hurt him. So yeah, I actually put 3 units on Narimani, average price plus 217. I'm like very confident in this pick. I have him capped at like even money at worst. Like I'm trying to be conservative about it. Like maybe Dawson's pace and activity could steal rounds here. I buy that. But I think, the bigger moments are going to be Narimani's in all likelihood. So, yeah. But, yeah, so the whole pod is on that Narimani here.
Narimani, real quick, too.
I might be. Who knows?
Well, real quick, too, right before Narimani got knocked out by Grundy, he actually hurt Grundy really, really bad. And Grundy just recovered and then knocked him out. But I guess my point to that is, it's not like the guy's got pillow hands. Like, no, the guy's got power. He can crack, too. So, yeah.
Look at what he did. He was absolutely – like, is Dawson a better striker on the feet than Paddy Pimblett? It's about the same.
No,
probably.
Yeah, they both suck.
Yeah. And he was absolutely like boxing his face off in that fight. I saw today the Narimani KO line is like plus 750, and I'm kind of tempted by that, especially if Dawson starts to slow. I think there's a decent chance he gets put out here. To your point, Luke, he's been a knockout waiting to happen for quite a while now. But, next up we have oh, God, this is going to be this could be shockingly entertaining. But
that's what I think. Yeah, I don't know, man.
Roman Dolidze against Khadis Ibragimov. Luke, I know you put a play on this one, too. What do you got for me?
Yeah, so these are 2 guys that I don't particularly hold in very high regard. But one thing I will say is that both guys are going to come into the center and absolutely try to take each other's heads off. So I got minus 190 on the fight doesn't go to decision for 2 units. Usually I don't play violence bets that are this chalky. But I would absolutely be shocked if this fight goes 15 minutes. Like Ibragimov is just bad. He's just not good at all. Largely before he even came to the UFC, he was kind of just running through guys. He'd land takedowns occasionally, but he just literally comes through and wings like the biggest, most ridiculous shots, and then he usually eventually ends up catching somebody. But then when guys were able to take his shots and Down Jung and Ed Herman, he gassed and absolutely had nothing left. And this Roman, I'm just going to call him Roman. He's a dude who's largely been running through guys too, only 6-0. All I'm going to say is this guy's just straight up scary. If he gets through USADA, I would actually be completely shocked. I think this guy is on all the Georgian juice, as I like to call it. He actually does have a couple wins by heel hook, but I wouldn't look into that too much. I think it's just more so because his opponents absolutely have no concept of leg lock defense. He got both of those heel hooks in less than a minute. It's just kind of entertaining to watch, to be honest. But the guy does have takedowns too in his game. But he's one of these guys kind of like Al Hassan, I know, which is probably a bad comparison because he didn't end up putting out Lazez last time. But largely, he's one of these guys where, he's just scary, man. Like if he touches you one time, it's lights out. It's not just KO, it's bad KOs. So like both guys are hittable. Both guys are going to beat the middle. Both guys are going to throw wild strikes. I don't see any sort of solid fight IQ from any of them. So this is just a 100% solid violence bet for me. If I had to say I'm my most confident in my 6 plays, it's probably this one. I'd be shocked if it goes 15 minutes.
Nice. See, how about you?
Yeah, I'm not gonna. I'm not playing anything here. Yeah, I'm just gonna pass. But yeah, that last fight versus Ed Herman, that was. I'm sure a lot of people were on fight doesn't go to decision there, and just randomly.
And Herman
goes to a decision. This guy's got worse. Dude, he has like worse cardio than like massive heavyweights, like sumo wrestlers.
It looks like he went through like a 5-round
anyway,
fight.
I'm just gonna enjoy this.
By the way, let me just say before we move to legs here, I am loving that Luke is up in the volume of bets the last few cards here, embracing the degeneracy. That's
I love it.
Legs, you're up.
So, honestly, this is definitely more of one of the matchups on the card that is favor or pass, in my opinion. I don't think there's any way you can be backing Ibrahimov at this price. I think the only way you could be backing him is round 1 KO, because I think that's his. It's rounds 2 and 3. It looks like he went through a 5-round fight. I mean, it's unbelievable. But then on the flip side with the leads, like you guys touched on, he's a huge USADA victim, in my opinion. I mean, he just looks like he's on all kinds of juice. So I guess it'd be, I guess, minus 180 in his debut. But I mean, Ibrahimov's so bad. I mean, you can't trust him. And I think Luke's got a great play here on the fight doesn't go the distance.
Yeah, I like your bet a lot, Luke. I don't have much to add. Only thing I'll say about this is the leads, especially if you're thinking of playing him, is remarkably low volume. Like, to the point that it's like Ibrahimov maybe could steal around if he just stares at him. But he does seem relatively skilled. I just don't really know what to make of him. He's fought like nobody. So, yeah, I like Fuzzy to go to the decision as well. I have no play here.
And real quick, too, on that, John, in terms of the volume, I definitely get that. But actually going back and watching those fights, because that was something I considered as well in making the violence bet. Guys have just been so non-committal when fighting him because they know that he's going to try to take their head off. But this guy, Ibrahimov, he doesn't give an F. He's going to come forward and he's going to throw at anybody. So it's one of those situations where I think this is going to be the first guy who's really going to try to stand toe-to-toe with him. So that I'm kind of interesting to see how Roman deals with that too. But like I said, man, they're just going to be chucking bombs in the middle. It could turn out to be a Derek Lewis, Roy Nelson fight where they both just gas after 3 minutes and just lay on each other, and I eat my bet. But I just don't see that happening in very high percentage. So, but yeah, I just wanted to make that quick point.
Yeah. So next fight, again, we're going to go to our newly found degenerate Luke here. He's got a bet in this fight. It's Alex Pantoja and Askar Askarov.
Yeah. So yeah, geez, now you guys are bringing it up. I do got a lot of bets on this. This might be.
I got one. I have one bet.
This might be I got 6 tonight. Yeah, this might be some kind of record. We might need to bookmark this one. Hopefully, I don't lose my ass on Saturday. But no, my reasoning for this bet was I'm not on the Askar Askarov train. I think the guy. I don't want to say he's necessarily overrated. He's obviously got solid grappling as well. Magic. Oh yeah. Right. Yeah, there you go, Magic. No, I think his grappling is good. But I think largely even in fighting in ACB, I mean, he's fought some decent guys, but it just seems like they haven't had much of an answer necessarily for it. And he's drawing a guy in Pantoja who I think, he is a BJJ black belt. He has struggled with the takedown at times, but I haven't really seen him overtly controlled. So I think even if he is able to get taken down, I don't see Askarov having, that blanket pressure that he's able to do it to a lot of guys. And then in terms of on the feet, both guys are hittable, but in terms of volume, I like Pantoja to throw a little bit more. I think he has a little bit more sting on the end of his punches. He will slow because he does come out extremely hard, but he's another one of those guys I would call like somewhat of an effective gasser. He's still going to even throw later in the fights as well. And you even saw in that Figueiredo fight, we'll get into maybe a little bit later when we're talking about Benavidez, but despite getting beaten in that fight, he really made a decent showing of himself as well. I just don't think it's a great matchup for Askar Askarov. If he literally just takes Pantoja down and submits him, I'd be shocked. And I'd also be shocked if he's just able to outbox him over the course of 15 minutes. So I thought this line was a little bit off as well. I played Pantoja for 2 units at minus 180.
Lags, any play here? Any opinion?
Sorry, I muted there. So I have no play here. The lean is Pantoja, but I think at the current line where minus 200 where it's at, I just don't see a ton of value in that because I feel like this could come down to one of those like Moreno Askarov tough, like weird decisions. To be honest, I just watched that fight. I don't know how that was a draw. I personally scored that Moreno rounds 1 and 3.
Yeah, yep. And I bet Moreno.
That's me personally, yeah, so I lean Pantoja here. I think he's better everywhere. I think other than actual wrestling takedowns, but on the ground and on the feet, I think it's Pantoja all day.
C, how about you?
Yeah, I actually like Askarov here. The one, I guess the concern I would have is that he tends to play guard a little much. But I do think Pantoja, recently he's kind of getting a little reckless, on the feet. And I mean, at least Askar has the wrestling upside, being able to land takedowns. And I think, outside of the Moreno fight, I actually think, if you kind of go back and look at him, like his striking, like he has like pretty technical striking, like on the feet, like he's not bad on the feet. I think the Moreno fight like kind of swayed a lot of people. Like I know, going into the Elliott fight, that was kind of like a big thing, but I've kind of always been on the Askarov train. Even in the Moreno fight, like I don't.
See?
I mean, I personally had Askarov winning the first two, but yeah, I mean, I see like the argument like either way. But yeah, I mean, I think Askarov just has yeah, I mean, I just think he has like ways to win. I think he's pretty intelligent for the most part. So I don't know.
Yeah, I have similar feelings. See, I kind of think, I mean, I'd probably give a slight lean to Pantoja on physicality, but other than that, like first of all, I think Askarov, I saw KO was like plus 1200, and Pantoja took some life-altering damage in that Fig fight, and he got wobbled twice by Matt Schnell in their last fight. I kind of think his chin is going, and to C's point, Askarov striking against Moreno was really an outlier. Like it's kind of weird because like when I went to other tape, like his boxing looks solid in Russia, and it looks solid against Elliott. And then he looked like he had just put on 4-ounce gloves for the first time against Moreno. It was really weird. But I do think he can be at least like competitive in exchanges. And in terms of the grappling, like I get how decorated Pantoja is in jiu-jitsu, but like we've gone through this before, and like we've talked about this on this pod a few times. Like if Askarov does end up on top of him, like I believe Pantoja can get up, but I don't think there's going to be this sweep to a back kick that everybody's talking about. Like Askarov's jiu-jitsu is legit. Like he's probably not getting swept by Pantoja here. I mean, maybe it could happen, but I don't think at a high clip. So like I kind of agree with C. I do think he has ways to, unless Pantoja could hurt him multiple times, but I do think it's going to be a little greasy and close. And Askarov's got ways to maybe just steal rounds here. I haven't played it yet. I'm thinking about the KO line. If it goes to plus 200, I'll probably take a small stab. Although, God, I've stabbed enough plus 200s on this card, so maybe not. Anyway, we move on to Ariane Lipsky, Luana Carolina. Lags, you got anything on this play?
This is a pass. I mean, I think this is a dumpster fire fight, and I guess this should belong in Luke's 3-0 for me. So that's all I'll say. It's a pass for me.
C, what about you? See? All right, C's frozen. All right, so I will go. C, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. It's kind of taking a lot for me to not play Lipsky here, to be honest. Dude, I don't know, man. She at least like moves forward and like understands like how to throw a punch. Like, dude, Carolina's honestly, I think Luke, you played her. I don't know about that, dude. She's fought like literally. Dude, I mean these are women who are walking like mall walkers that she's been fighting. They're just go for like a little jog in the mall or whatever. I mean this is not serious. It's taking a lot for me not to pull the trigger here. I want to. I don't know if I can, but I mean, dude, Carolina, she's like one of the worst female fighters I've ever seen in my whole life. At least Lipsky like moves forward and like can throw like a straight line punch. I mean, Carolina was getting like literally clinched up by like this lady in basketball shorts that were down to her knees. It was ridiculous. I mean, seriously, she spent like a minute and a half on the fence and then reversed and like landed an elbow and like just the lady just died. Like she doesn't know what she's doing at all. Like none of her punches look. I don't know. I think I have a feeling that Lipsky comes out here and like looks like minus 300, and I'm gonna like regret it. So I'm debating this, but I don't see how anyone can play the other side.
Yeah, I am also. I'm probably playing not Carolina. Sorry, Ariane Lipsky here. I'm kind of hoping we might get this down to like the minus 110 range. That would be nice. But yeah, I think pretty much like what you said, see, I think Carolina is remarkably hittable. I don't think Lipsky's like good, don't get me wrong. But I do think, she's kind of, JoJo Calderwood, it's a pretty tough first fight in the UFC, especially stylistically for Lipsky. The McCann fight, especially after last night, Christ, is doesn't look great. But I like Lipsky's physicality. I think she's got a far more technical arsenal. And unlike Priscilla Cachoeira, who was literally just kind of doing what she does and just following her around with her hands up and not cutting off the cage at all, I think Lipsky will find pocket exchanges here. I don't like how Carolina just basically keeps her head straight and tall the entire time. I don't know if Lipsky will finish her, but I think it's in play. But yeah, I mean, look, I'm scarred from playing Lipsky I played her against McCann and against freaking Calderwood. I'm scarred from that. But I do I might be willing to add a third Lipsky scar. I just struggle so hard to see Carolina getting ahead on like volume here. And like in terms of, damage, I really, really, really don't think any of those goofy little Muay Thai tricks she was trying with Priscilla are going to work here. I think she's just going to get her face boxed off. So no play yet, but I think I'm probably going to end up on Lipsky. Luke, how about you?
So I'm going the other way here. Let's see if I can make my dumpster fire women's MMA fights go 3 for 3 on bets 2 weeks in a row. So I'm on the other side here. I got 1 unit on the one of Carolina at plus 124. I'll preface by saying I don't think either girls are good at all. My big issue with Lipsky is if you go back and watch a lot of her KSW fights, I mean, I'll be the first one to say I was kind of on the Lipsky train. I thought she was going to come in here and have a lot of success. I did bet her against Calderwood as well. But one thing I will say, even with the strength of competition, at least in terms of Calderwood and McCann, even in her most recent fight against Padua, I think she looked absolutely terrible here. I think this play for me is more so a fade on Ariane Lipsky, and I say that because she is a completely different fighter from what we saw in KSW to the UFC. She doesn't have that same sort of aggression in that go forward, at least that I've seen from her KSW to her UFC fights, where, she's another girl who probably, at least in terms of technical striking in the pocket boxing, is obviously going to have the advantage here. But she just doesn't seem like she's pulled the trigger enough in any of these recent fights, and just tends to also keep her head on the center line as well. And even in that Calderwood fight and McCann fight, like I just feel like she's made those fights a lot more difficult than they needed to be. And especially in her most recent win against Padua, to me, this is just a complete fade on Ariane Lipsky. I'm happy to lose this bet, but over the course of her last 3 fights, even despite fighting better competition, she's shown me absolutely nothing. This Carolina girl, I don't think she's great either, but she is a little bit longer. She'll use the push kick. She'll kick from the outside, straight punches. She also does stand straight up, keep her head on the center line. I got no delusions of grandeur here, guys. It's another really low-level dumpster fire women's MMA fight, but kind of similar to the Jojua fight, not a direct comparison. You're going to give me plus money on a dumpster fire fight in a girl in Carolina who I do think can outland her, at least at range. Assuming she doesn't eat some big overhand right. I don't think she's getting submitted here. I think she honestly could submit Ariane Lipsky, to be completely honest with you. She doesn't seem to be overtly defensively responsible. Carolina's got those long legs too. So one of these fights, man, where I'm definitely willing to lose it. I'm not in the Ariane Lipsky camp anymore. I just think she's a drastic underperformer. So even on paper, if she's probably the better fighter, I'm always down to fade people who consistently underperform. So that's just me.
Yeah, fair point. Lags, anything to add here?
I already talked about this one.
Oh shit, I'm an asshole. Okay.
No, you're good.
Christ,
You're good. No, it's a dumpster fire. Pass.
We're moving to, what's up, GK? We're moving to fun fight here. We got Rafael Fiziev and Mark Jacasey. I'm always a sucker for the red mohawk and spinning shit Jacasey throws. Steve, you got any thoughts here?
You talking to me?
Yeah. Fiziev, Jacasey.
Which one?
Fiziev,
Jacasey.
Which fight?
Fiziev?
Casey Fiziev.
Oh,
sorry. Sorry.
Yeah, just to save everybody time, I'm just gonna say pass.
Yeah, sorry.
I don't have a ton of thoughts here. I kind of lean Fiziev. I like the addition Casey's made. I like his talent. I just think Fiziev's got a more coherent striking game at this point. The reason I haven't bet it yet is because, aside from all the other bets I have tonight, it's because I just Fiziev going life, or maybe not life and death, but struggling badly with Alex White down the stretch was a pretty major concern for me. And so it's like, he obviously is probably a more experienced striker for his life, and I do think the line is wide, and I think he has the ability to give Casey issues. I think Casey's upside is pretty high, and he's been improving fight to fight, and it wouldn't shock me if he comes out here and just dumpsters him. So, I kind of want plus 150 if I'm going to play Fiziev here, but he's my lean. I think he's got – the kind of technical striking ability to not get, really screwed by those low kicks that Casey's been flashing lately. And I think if he does that, it kind of becomes a volume striking match, and that's not a match that Casey's very good at least hasn't been to date at any rate. So, yeah, that's Fiziev's my lean as far as value goes, but I do think Casey has a higher ceiling, and so it's kind of one of those I don't really want to play with fire here. Solely, how about you?
So I'm right there with you, John. Haven't made a play yet, but plus 150 is my consideration number on Fiziev. Casey's just always been a really big question mark for me, as you touched on. I think the guy has a super high ceiling. He presents a lot of athletic tools, but I even touched on this in my breakdown I just released today. Cheap plug, check that out, swrmma.com. We go through the whole card. But no, my big thing with Casey is even where he's had success in terms of striking, the kicking, the wrestling, or the grappling, he's also been beaten at all of those things throughout the course of the UFC. And I know a lot of people are sitting there saying that, well, it looks like, we're probably seeing the best Mark Casey. And I guess I would assume that that's probably the case. I don't know that for sure though, but he's beaten Joe Duffy and Lando Venata. I don't think those are really great wins. He did look really good against them. I'm just not sold on Mark Casey yet. And, this Fiziev guy comes out of Tiger Muay Thai. He's actually one of the head trainers over there in their Phuket branch, one of the main gyms out there. Actually did some work with Peter Yan. I think he was one of the main sparring partners with Peter Yan for a while too. Dude kicks like an absolute truck. He's going to go forward. His chin's proven to be extremely durable. And so my big thing with Casey being such a kicker, I think he actually might engage Fiziev in this kick for kick battle. And I think that's a massive mistake because this guy, even guys have kicked him consistently too. And he's like a traditional Thai guy, obviously not from Thailand, but you know what I'm saying? The dude's shins are conditioned, him kicking or him getting his calf kicked or his leg kick. It's not the same as a lot of other guys. This guy's just hard, durable, short, compact. He's going to go forward. So I definitely think the value here is on Fiziev. This is one of those situations, though, where we could see Casey just really start that ascent to where his potential capabilities are. And I look like a jackass in this breakdown. But, man, I think Fiziev's a really tough matchup, though. So I haven't pulled the trigger on yet on this one, and I'm probably going to end up staying away unless significant Casey money comes in. But I'm still not sold on it, man. This Fiziev guy's tough. So I'm actually going with the upset here in Fiziev.
Nice. What about you, Lex?
Yeah, so I'll keep it short. Similar to what Luke said, I'm not sold on the Casey train yet. Obviously, these last two fights, he looked great, but the first three fights that he had were just horrible matchmaking for him. You get Jakar Close, Dan Hooker, and then, I'll be honest, I'm blanking on the last one. But beside the point, I right now with the current line, I just don't think there's a ton of value on Casey. I'm kind of waiting for, like Luke said, the opposite, I guess. So a little bit of Fiziev money to come in, but definitely not one that I'm looking to target. Just looking to watch Casey's improvements in this fight.
Yeah, fair point. And then next up, we get the co-main event. It's Jack the Joker Hermanson is taking on Kelvin Gastelum. Legs, did you play Joker here?
So I actually haven't played Joker here. So I guess what's giving me pause for concern is just Kelvin's hands and the power that he possesses. I get it's not crazy like Cannoniers or Thiago Santos, but It's just in the back of my head. I just think that Jack could easily be KO'd here if it stays on the feet longer than I think it will be. I think Jack's definitely going to have success in the wrestling and taking Kelvin down, but it's always a question mark for me. But I'm definitely leaning towards the over 1.5 if I can get a decent number on that. But other than that, it's probably just a pass for me. I know you guys are high on Hermanson here, so I'll be rooting for you guys.
See, how about you?
Yeah, I haven't really made a play per se, but I do think Jack has just a little bit more upside, I guess. More volume. He can land takedowns. Whereas like Calvin, I guess it's pretty dependent on him just getting into like pocket exchanges, right? I mean, I think that's really what it is, and even there, doesn't really throw a ton of volume, but yeah, I mean, he's got decent hands. But yeah, I think Hermanson definitely has like more upside, more ways to win. Throws a shit ton of volume, so yeah, I'm gonna go Hermanson, but that's all I got.
Yeah, so I have a big play on Jack here. I have 3.5 units on him, even money. I'm a little worried just because it seems like all of MMA Twitter is on Jack right now. I love that play, Magic.
I haven't seen Kelvin yet.
Like it's so freaking weird, and I keep looking for angles for Kelvin, and I don't see them. And I'm like, if everybody on Bet MMA Tips and everybody on MMA Twitter's on him, why the fuck is this line staying here? It makes no sense. But like, I taped the fight pretty aggressively, and like, I just like, unless Kelvin knocks him out, like I don't see how he wins minutes here. To Magic's point, like Kelvin, you know, his defensive wrestling held up sort of against Jacare, but Jacare's wrestling really fell off a cliff about 3 years ago. When I was taping Whitaker the other day, his fight with Jacare literally, even though he got killed that fight, but he literally looked like a different fighter. You know, the Jacare that fought Kelvin is not the guy who's shooting quick entries and getting you down. So it's like, I can't take that too seriously. You know, you watch the Weidman fight, and Weidman is just putting him on the mat whenever he wants. Now, Weidman's a great wrestler. He's probably a little better than Jack, but he's given his back to get up pretty frequently in that fight, which is concerning. Seating position pretty easily. And, like, while Weidman's better than Jack, I think Jack's pretty good. And, like, you know, Neil Magny took him down 6 times. Like, he's been taken down a lot over the years. He's 5'9". Like, Jack's got a huge frame, huge reach advantage. That was something else that seemed notable in that fight with Weidman was, you know, while he did knock Weidman down, but like, who hasn't knocked Chris Weidman down these days? Like, when you, like, he looked really, 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 if he does not get it, he dies. He looked really, really uncomfortable at distance with Weidman in that fight, just like he was trying to gauge it too much. And you saw the same thing with Till in his last fight. To be honest, I want to know what kind of horse steroids they shot him up with before the Adesanya fight. It's like, out of nowhere, he actually came out and looked like a top, like, 3 fighter in the world for one night, and then promptly regressed back to all of his worst tendencies. And so I'm like, I look at it, and, you know, like Magic, I see that point, but like, I don't really, you know, Hermanson threw 380 strikes against Jacare over 5 rounds. I'm not really counting on a cardio dump, to be honest here. I really think he's going to fuck Kelvin up. He's longer than him. His kicks are going to keep him off. Like, I may be wrong, and it does seem like someone knows something that I don't with how this line's standing still, and so maybe I will look like a fool come Saturday night. I just, like, I don't see a way, even standing, like if Hermanson stayed standing with him, I literally think he could just play the outside game he played against Jacare for 15 minutes. I capped him like minus 200 because Kelvin's power is real, but yeah, 3.5 units on Hermanson. What do you think here, Luke? Yeah,
so I guess I don't have as strong of a opinion as you guys do. I did end up picking Jack, and you know, I think for me a bet consideration number would be plus 122. I did cap Jack a slight favorite here, but to me it's just really a close fight, and I guess we'll somewhat disagree in terms of the stand-up, John. I think when the fight's there, you know, obviously Hermanson is the longer guy, but I think one thing Calvin's consistently done, though, at least when the fights are on the feet, he's always been undersized. I think he's been able to give good fights. And I touched on the fact of the Adesanya fight where he kind of maybe outperformed normally what he did do. But, you know, I think it is just important to take into consideration with how long Adesanya is and how much success he did have in the boxing in that fight. And personally, I don't rate Jack's striking very well, at least in terms of the Jacare fight, though. But
he'll spam volume.
True. So I guess I've always been relatively low on Jack Hermanson, but that Jacare Souza fight was something that really kind of changed my perspective, because in the second round of that fight, he actually got a takedown on Jacare and was in his guard for 4 minutes. And, Jacare's high-level black belt, and Jacare couldn't do anything. He couldn't create space. Yeah. Like, Jack's top pressure is so good. And that's the one thing I'll say, assuming this fight gets to the mat, because I think that's largely what will happen in terms of how Jack wins this fight. I think he wins minutes on the ground. Kelvin is a black belt as well. I think he's defensively responsible enough, but I don't know if he's going to be able to have any sort of scrambling / get up success in this fight with just how heavy Jack is on top. So I think we kind of might see something similar to Jacare, where we see a lot of lay and pray from Jack too here to steal minutes. But on the feet, though, man, I don't necessarily like it for Jack too much. I think Kelvin probably wins in stand up. So that's, I guess, our primary disagreement, and largely why I'm not playing Jack, at least at definitely at current price. If more money comes in on Kelvin, like I said, he gets to that plus 122. That would give me a nice little 10% edge, and I'd probably make a small 1 to 2 unit play. But at current odds, I want no part of it. But I'm picking Jack.
Just to be clear real quick, like, I know Hermanson's not a good striker. I don't think he's a better technical striker than Gastelum. But I do sort of think Kelvin is somewhat reliant on his opponent to give him the kind of, like, the only fight he wasn't really was the Adesanya fight. He's relying on his opponent to get kind of like drag, like, the dog out of him. Like, you look at a lot of his fights, the Jacare fight, he goes out there and he attempts like 80 strikes across 15 minutes. The Till fight, attempts 60 across like 15 minutes. And like, while Jack will spam volume, he's going to be doing it from the outside. And so it's like, I could be wrong here, but I do think, he's not going to be going and trading with Kelvin in the pocket here. And I think that could cause Kelvin some serious issues. But yeah, we'll see. I'm excited for that fight. It could be the coup de grace on an awful night if this next one isn't. Or it could just continue a great night. Who knows? But we have, and Magic, cover your ears if you want to still, if you don't want to block off, or you don't want to go unconscious again. We got Joe Benavidez, Davison Figueiredo. I know you have a play here. Hit me with it.
Yeah, I played Joby. I got 2 units on him. I think in the first fight, when I kind of went back and watched, and granted, I played Figs by knockout the first time, and I got like, I think plus 325 or plus 350, which is a solid line. But when I went back, I mean, that's like it's kind of his path to victory, right? I mean, it's pretty tied on inside the distance. But when I went back and I watched, I mean, I honestly think Joe B was having more success on the feet than Figs was, for the first round and a half prior to the headbutt. I mean, every time Joe B basically darted in, I mean, he was doubling, tripling up. And I think he was, wearing, the shots that he ate from Figs fine. I don't really think there was like a moment in the first round where I was like, fuck, Joe B's like really, hurt or anything like that. Honestly, I kind of think the opposite. I think Joe B was actually tagging Figs pretty good. And I think it was starting to bother him. And then the headbutt happens and he gets nuked. But granted, like, I do think that, like, Joe B just puts himself in those situations when he fucking ducks his head and darts in like it's there. But I mean, Joe B's better minute winner here. And I think, after, I'd say 2.5 rounds, I think there's a pretty significant advantage for Joe B just cardio wise. So, if you're playing Figs, I feel like you kind of have to play him inside the distance. I don't really see how he can win a decision. Because I mean, he can, I guess, in the sense that he hurts Joe B multiple times, but I just kind of have a feeling. Yeah, I mean, I just have a feeling if he's hurting Joe B, like, Joe B's just getting put out.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, so I also played Benavidez for 2 units plus 184. Similarly, to me, it's like you look at it, like, let's look at it from, so like I did this with Rose Andrade last week. I said, look, we don't know how repeatable that first round is. Rose looked great. This is one iteration of a fight. Like, that's not what we're capping it based off of. And, you know, Rose did end up looking good, but I think everybody would agree Andrade was far more competitive on the feet last time than the first time. You know, you know, that's just a fact. And so, like, the last time, what did we get? Again, it's one iteration. And yes, Fig knocked him out. Fig was a plus 115 dog coming into that fight, or plus 115.
Plus 115, yeah.
So he's a plus 115 dog. Now, Fig hitting his win condition in round 2, he's now minus 210. What do we see in that fight? We saw Benavidez double him up on strikes. You know, he was landing clean just about every single time he threw the overhand. Like, it was there. You know, I am, like, supremely confident that he's going to be the minute winner here. And, like, I think we'd all probably agree that, like, Fig's power is going to decline if it gets to, like, mid-round 3 and he doesn't put him out again, like, round 3, 4, 5. And yet the over 2.5 is minus 175. So the book's telling us that there is a, you know, better than 60% chance this is going deep into round 3. Like, and you're telling me that Figueiredo is priced up at like 68% to win this? Like, that doesn't make a ton of sense to me. And frankly, look, I get Figueiredo has got probably the best power ever at flyweight. I totally get it. But we've seen, you know, Benavidez go in there. He's always had the same brawling style. We saw it with young Eddie Wineland. We saw it with Moraga. We saw him go in there with Cejudo and exchange shots. Yeah, I'd agree Fig hits harder than those guys. But, you know, he's worn those strikes. He's only been knocked out twice in like 35 pro fights. I just, like, at a men's 125, for Figueiredo to justify a price that's over minus 200, you basically have to be saying he's KOing him about 55% of the time. And, like, I just don't see how you can reasonably say that. Like, it's, to me, that's a crazy thing to say. I would say 40%, I guess, is fair, and you maybe attribute like a 15% chance that, like, he wins a decision and does knock him down a couple times. But I don't see how you get past like minus 122 or minus 150 at absolute best when it comes to Fig's line here. It just doesn't make sense to me. And frankly, like, to C's point, I thought Benavidez looked pretty good in the first fight before the knockout. Regardless of whether the headbutt affected him or not, obviously he got lazy defensively, and obviously it could happen again. You know, that's a very high outcome. Figueiredo knocked him out again. But to say he's value or that he's going to hit it, like, to play Figueiredo at 210, you know, playing his ITD or playing him round, I get. But to play him like minus 210, you basically have to be capping him in the minus 270 range. And I just don't get that at all. We'll see what happens, but I've seen, you know, I can understand. Yeah, I mean, Magic, if you play him round 1 KO, I mean, I think that's probably got value on it. Like, but I don't think Fig money line makes much sense. I think there's a lot of value on Benavidez, and I actually think Benavidez is going to finish him. I'm just going to say it. I think he's going to finish. And I wouldn't be. And I'm going to go out even further on the end here and say I wouldn't be shocked if it's earlier than round 4, like if it's in the first 3 rounds. I think he was landing clean the first time. Look, I wouldn't be shocked if he gets knocked out either. But I do think the values of Benavidez here. So, Luke, what do you got?
So you guys pretty much touched on it all. I guess I'll just make a few quick other ancillary points. You know, in terms of at least how rematches go, usually 70% of the time when it's a direct rematch and there's no fights in between, the original winner wins that fight 70% of the time, which would be minus 233 on the money line. But I do think this is one of those, I guess, anomaly type situations where I don't think that's the case, because as you guys touched on, if you watch the first fight, in my opinion, Joe is clearly winning. I've seen some narrative, you know, that Figueiredo was getting his timing on the counters and was landing the bigger shots. But to me, at flyweight, unless, like, listen, I know he knocked him out in the second round, but, like, let's just put that aside for 2 seconds and just say that didn't happen. In my opinion, in the eyes of the judges, actually, I do believe on all 3 scorecards, Joe B did win the first round as well. And he was also winning the early part of the second round before the knockout came. So second point of contention to play, I guess, devil's advocate against myself. I don't buy the headbutt narrative here. I don't think that had really much to do with the KO. I watched it back like probably 5 times in a row. And really after it happened, like, his knees didn't buckle. He didn't wobble. He didn't shake or anything. But what he did was he circled straight into the power hand of Figueiredo with his hands down and got knocked the fuck out. So I don't think the headbutt narrative it is warranted. But then again, at the same time, as you kind of touched on, Jim, Jesus Christ, John, what his win condition is. And, you know, we touched on it too. I mean, he's not a round winner, and Joe B has proven the test of time and been around forever that he can win minutes and can win rounds, and he's going to throw in decent volume. And that's, I guess, my biggest point of contention with Figueiredo. Obviously he has that power element, so you have to factor that into your handicapping in general. But just from the flyweight division in general, the guy is so low output at a weight class like this. You just can't. Maybe he's an anomaly because he's done so well. I mean, I guess I get it. He's like 6-1 in the UFC, and I'm just an idiot. But I just think in the aggregate,
even if he's an anomaly, like it's like how. Just look at the Pantoja fight. Pantoja went through hell and didn't go out. Now, look, I'd agree he was reasonably durable there, but it's not a guarantee. He didn't knock out Jared Brooks or Jesse Formiga. So,
yeah, in my opinion, he actually lost that Jared Brooks fight too.
100%.
He got home cooking in Brazil, but just to finish it out, as you guys kind of touched on too, like I don't see how you bet him at -200 here, because like let's just throw that first fight aside. Obviously, he got the W, so that leaves. If we're looking at 10 fights overall in terms of how we're handicapping, all right, so Fig got the first one, so that leaves us with 9 fights left. So if you're betting him at -200, for you to have zero value on that bet at all, you're capping him to win this fight 6 out of the next 9 times.
Yeah.
For you to have value on that bet, you would have to cap him like -260 or something, for even like a 5%. And if you watched any sort of that first fight, I don't know how you could put the guy at -260 to justify a bet at -200. That makes no sense to me. Like literally, like maybe Joe B is just completely done here, and Fig comes in here and starches him twice, and we look like ass clowns. I haven't made the bet yet, but I honestly think Joe B is going to get up to +200 here. I think this line on Fig's going to keep climbing, so I'm going to wait. But I really don't understand it. From a handicapping perspective and a value perspective, you would have to put him at like -260 to even get roughly 5% here, which is just completely egregious considering how the first fight played out. And Joe B was clearly winning minutes. He didn't have a whole lot of success in the wrestling, which is kind of why I'm slightly staying off at this point, because that is a big part of Joe B's game, which has allowed him to win a lot of minutes. So that's a little disconcerting, but still, even if this fight is largely a stand-up exchange for 25 minutes, assuming nobody goes out, I still don't know how you put Figueiredo at -200 here. That just doesn't make any sense to me. So I'm being a little cheap here. Like I said, I'm going to wait. I think this line on Fig climbs, but if I can get Joe B around +200, I'll probably pull the trigger on that.
Lags, how about you?
Well, I'm going to go contrarian here to all of you guys, but to be honest, I'm not going to ask because I don't have a bet on here. Personally, I took Figueiredo in the first fight. I took him on the money line. I took him KO +300. But in this fight, I think all the values on Joe B, like you touched on, and that if you're playing Figueiredo, it's got to be inside the distance. Like Luke touched on, he's not going to be winning minutes here. He got outstruck in the first round and a half that we clearly saw in the first fight. So, and like you touched on, I was actually going to bring up the Rose Andrade fight. It's similar, like lining. I don't see how you could line Figueiredo -210 after like the 7-8 minutes that we saw in the first fight. So I think Joe has all the value here from a money line perspective, but I'm picking Figueiredo, and I think he KOs him again round 3.
All right, so let's move on to, I don't know if anybody else has one, but I got a little Lambo parlay here for the
I do not have one for this card.
This one's going to pay +11,870. It's only a 3-legger here. We got Jack Hermanson by submission +600. We got Joe Benavidez by KO TKO +850. And then we got Arman Sarukian by points -125. If you guys want to go make 11 grand, put $100 on that tonight. Thank me later. That's it.
I don't hate that. I don't hate that at all. But other than
what,
the Benavidez
what was
knockout,
it?
it's a little that part's a little crazy.
Hermanson sub, Benavidez KO, Sarukian points.
I like Magic.
I don't think Jack can sub him.
Yeah, that's my issue with not taking Hermanson. I think the takedowns are going to be there for him, but I just don't know if the sub's going to be there for him.
Well,
I mean, Kelvin gives it back a lot too. Yeah, the counterbound too. Yeah.
I mean, Hermanson's round is vicious.
Yeah.
I don't know what this is, but I'll take John sub, Lipsky, ITD. I'll take what's the guy who gasses like a heavyweight? I'll take him.
Ibrahimov.
Yeah.
right.
Let me
Hold on.
get Ibrahimov round 1. I just want him round 1, and then I want Nod by knockout. So whatever that is.
Let me get you that for you. All right, John's by sub. We have Narimani by what? Knockout?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's looking to get a real Lambo.
Ibrahimov knockout round 1.
Yeah.
And then the fourth one was Lipsky inside the distance.
Yeah.
So that on FanDuel pays out $611,900.
Yeah, I like that.
So that is $1. That is $1 to win $6,119.
Yeah, let's do that one. I like that one. Somebody in the chat, please tweet me what I just said.
John sub, Narimani KO, Lipsky inside the distance, and then Ibrahimov KO round 1.
Yo, what is Ibrahimov round 1? That's like his win.
Plus 1,700.
What? Just to win round 1?
Plus 1,700 KO round 1.
Oh yeah, let me get that. That's like his win condition.
Yeah, I agree.
That's what I think. Yeah. Honestly, that was going to be my plan. Was to play.
What?
Was to play the Leeds money line for 2 units, and then have a small stab on the KO round 1 because that's insane.
I agree. I'm gonna stab that. I gotta look at some. I'm like, dude, this could be like the sharpest I ever look for this card, or this could be a total dumpster fire, or I just go into like a bunker for the next month. Like this is. I'm taking some stabs.
It's gonna be a fun one.
I'm honestly like really confident in Narimani and John's. Like I never feel confident about playing plus 200. I always am like, oh man, like I really need to hit like an inside straight here. And in these, I'm like, they should both win. Like that's how I personally feel about them.
I agree, John. I agree.
Yeah. We're into Narimani, but for
Magic has something here. Magic, please. Please send your play.
Davison round 1, Pantoja round 1, and Ibrahimov round 1. $25 to win $12K.
Not impossible.
I might do that. I might stab that.
Not impossible.
Not possible.
I don't mind it.
What if we did Davison KO round 1, Pantoja KO round 1, and Ibrahimov KO round 1?
That'd probably go over the FanDuel limit.
I'll be honest. I'm gonna make that up right now because I'm kind of curious to see what it is. I'm not gonna lie. Okay, so Davison KO.
I can't believe Quinn's not giving us a Lambo in the chat right now. That's pretty disappointing.
Is Quinn in the chat?
Yeah, he was.
He was earlier.
All
right.
Guys,
so I'll start doing his tape study weeks in advance.
So all 3 of those KO round 1, and you throw the $25 on it, it's to win $35,000.
Dude, Magic, if he armbars him in round 1, Kyle Marley will give you free picks for a year. Put Magic's comment on there.
Oh man.
I can't tonight, boys. I can't. You guys
I'm gonna throw together a little. It might not be as rich as C's, but a nice little giveaway for either this card or the next one. We'll see.
I'm hearing Kyle Marley's giving away free picks for a year if that happens. Everybody go retweet his last tweet.
Honestly,
well, thanks for joining us tonight. I hope you enjoyed the pod. I hope you guys make a profitable Saturday. I hope we helped. Yeah, it's going to be fun. We should be back Monday night doing our normal recap show, and then probably going to be next Wednesday, probably in the 10:30 time slots. It's going to be back on. And maybe I think you guys should all go tweet Magic and tell him to come on for the pay-per-view next month to do the full pod with us.
He is. If Narimani gets a knockout, he's in. He agreed to it.
All right. So if Narimani gets a knockout, you guys get blessed with Magic next month. That's it. But thanks for joining us, guys. John Stargarian MMA. You can find me on Twitter at MMA Fox, at Fluke, at SWR_betting, C at C Hansen 10, and at Lags _the Capper. Enjoy the fights and take it easy.
Bye.